Alien girl pulls human from a sinking bridge, but human finds his footprints leading to her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The storm had already swallowed the horizon when Ethan Ward eased his old delivery truck onto the suspension bridge. Rain hammered the windshield like handfuls of gravel, the wipers dragging in jerky arcs, struggling to keep up. Red warning lights flickered across the dashboard. Traction assist offline, lane sensors blinded, stabilizers misreading the sway of the cables. Ethan leaned forward, squinting past the streaks of water racing down the glass. He'd driven this route for years, but tonight the world felt tilted, the steel towers groaning above him as if the storm itself was trying to pull the bridge apart. A deep metallic rumble vibrated under the tires. Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel. Easy, easy, just a few more minutes, he murmured. The road shimmered with standing water, reflecting the pulsing hazard beacons like broken stars. Another tremor rolled beneath him, stronger this time, followed by a sharp jolt that made his seatbelt lock against his chest. The center span sagged. It wasn't dramatic, not like in the movies. It was subtle, almost gentle, the way a breath leaves a tired body. But Ethan felt it. The bridge was dipping, sinking. A support cable snapped somewhere in the storm, the sound of faint whip cracks swallowed by wind and rain. Ethan's heart kicked hard. He pressed the gas, urging the truck forward, but the tires hit a sheet of water and skidded sideways. The world lurched. The guardrail blurred past. The truck slid toward the edge. No, no, no. The rear wheel dropped first. Gravity pulled. Metal scraped. The cab tilted. The safety harness bit into Ethan's shoulder as the front end pitched downward. Cold water surged into his boots, the river churning below like a dark lung breathing in the storm. The truck shuddered, and then a burst of blue-white light flashed across the passenger side window. A silhouette moved through the rain, fluid and fast, too graceful to be human. Ethan barely had time to register the glow of blue skin, the glint of silver eyes, before the door was wrenched open. A hand, cool, strong, impossibly steady, closed around his forearm. The world became a blur of motion. The seatbelt released with a sharp click. The storm roared past in streaks of sound and color. Ethan felt himself lifted, pulled from the sinking cab with a force that didn't feel like panic or desperation. It felt practiced, precise, almost gentle. The truck vanished beneath them, swallowed by the river with a muted splash. Ethan's breath tore out in a gasp as his boots hit solid ground. He stumbled, knees weak, lungs burning as he pulled in air heavy with the scent of ozone and wet stone. And then he saw her, the alien girl. Tall, slender, blue skin glowing faintly in the stormlight, her hair plastered to her cheeks in silver dark strands. Her expression unreadable, her stance steady, as if the storm simply bent around her. Ethan wiped the rain from his eyes, still shaking. You, pull me out of that. She didn't answer. She only turned toward the ravine, watching the waves swallow the last bubble of air rising from his truck. Then, in a voice soft enough that Ethan wondered if he imagined it, she said, "You were not meant to fall tonight." Before he could ask her what she meant, a gust of wind swept across the broken span, and she stepped back into the shadows as if the storm itself carried her away. Rain softened to a steady whisper as Ethan steadied himself on the slick ground, trying to pull breath back into his lungs. Cold air stung the cut on his cheek where a shard of glass had grazed him, but the sting barely registered. His focus stayed locked on the faint blue glow fading into the darkness ahead. "Wait," he managed, his voice hoarse and thin against the storm. The glowing figure paused, not turning, just listening. Ethan took a step forward. Water seeped into his socks, but he barely felt it. "I do not even know your name," he said. She tilted her head slightly, silver eyes glinting in the dim light as she finally faced him. Her voice carried a calmness that seemed strangely out of place in the ruin of a collapsing bridge. "Names are not needed, Ethan Ward." The fact she knew his name sent a soft jolt through him. "How do you know who I am?" he asked. She looked past him toward the broken span of the bridge, now just a dark silhouette against the storm. Because you drive this route every night. Because you always slow down at the midpoint, even when the weather is clear. Because you look at the river like you are searching for something. Her gaze returned to him. I watch. Ethan swallowed, unsure if he should feel reassured or unsettled. Rain pattered across his jacket, the droplets glinting briefly before sliding off. Well, thank you, he said, trying to make sense of her words. For pulling me out. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, then turned as if to leave. But when Ethan tried to take another step, his knees wobbled, and a wave of dizziness washed over him. The ground shifted beneath his feet. Leora was beside him before he fully realized he was falling. Her hand steadied his elbow with a strength that contradicted her slim frame. Your body is reacting to the fall, she said. Shock. Breathe slowly. Ethan let out a shaky laugh. You talk like a medic. I talk like someone who has seen many things fall, she replied. She guided him toward the shallow overhang where the rocks created a natural shelter. The ground here was drier, and the wind softened to a low hum. A faint, cool glow radiated from her skin, letting him see just enough to make out her face more clearly. Her features were sharp but gentle, almost sculpted, with delicate patterns beneath her skin that reminded him of starlight underwater. You should sit, she said. Ethan lowered himself onto a flat rock, feeling the lingering tremor in his legs. He pressed a hand to his forehead, trying to steady his breath. I owe you my life, he said quietly. Twice, I guess. Leora's expression shifted, not quite a smile, not quite sadness. I did not save you for a debt. Then why, he asked. Her answer came soft, almost carried by the breeze. Because something pulled you toward the river long before the bridge collapsed. You walk as if you expect the ground to give way beneath you. Ethan blinked, unsure how to respond. She knelt in front of him, her eyes reflecting the storm clouds above. Tell me, Ethan Ward, she said gently, why did you keep driving across a bridge you knew was failing? He looked down at his hands, rainwater pooling in his palms. Because someone has to deliver the cargo, he said at first. But when she did not move, did not look away, the truth rose uncomfortably in his throat. Because, he admitted, I did not have anywhere else to go. For the first time, Leora's expression softened fully, her silver eyes warm in the dim light. The storm eased further, the wind turning into a distant sigh. Then perhaps, she said, her voice calm and steady, it is time you learned that you are not meant to face the fall alone. Her words settled into him like warmth, quiet and unexpected, and Ethan felt the trembling in his chest slow just a little as the storm faded around them. The storm finally thinned to a cool mist drifting across the ravine, the kind that clung to Ethan's jacket and softened the edges of the night. He rubbed his palms together, trying to coax warmth back into his fingers, while Leora stood a few feet away, staring toward the broken silhouette of the bridge as if reading something written in the air. The faint glow beneath her skin pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. Ethan watched her for a long moment, then cleared his throat. You said I was not meant to fall tonight, he said quietly. How would you know something like that? Leora did not answer right away. Instead, she knelt near the edge of the rock shelf, pressing her hand lightly against the damp ground. A soft ripple of light spread outward from her palm, barely visible except for the way the mist shifted above it. Your path changed before you reached the midpoint of the bridge, she said finally. Your steps drifted. Your rhythm shifted. Something pulled you toward the weak section. Ethan frowned. I flinched because lightning hit the tower. That is all. She lifted her gaze to him, her silver eyes steady. You flinched the same way last week. And the week before that. And every time you crossed after midnight. Ethan's breath caught. You have been watching me that long? Leora stood, brushing rain from her hands. Your world measures time in hours and weeks. My people measure it in patterns. You repeat the same motions, the same hesitations, the same glances toward the water. Patterns tell stories, Ethan Ward. Yours has been telling a sad one. He looked down at his boots, wet and speckled with mud. Her words were sharp only because they were true. He had been drifting through his life, one delivery to the next, never stopping long enough to admit anything was wrong. I guess you see a lot from up here, he muttered. We see what the river shows us, she replied. Tonight it showed me someone who did not want to fall, but did not care enough to stop it either. Ethan let out a slow breath. The honesty stung, but he found himself grateful for it. He pushed himself up from the rock and took a careful step forward, the ground soft beneath his boots. Then why save me, he asked. If you think I am walking toward a fall anyway. Leora looked at him for a long, quiet moment. A breeze lifted a strand of her silver-dark hair, brushing it across her cheek. Because even a pattern can be rewritten, she said softly. Because sometimes the smallest shift leads away from the edge. A distant rumble rolled across the ravine, not thunder this time, but something deeper, metallic, echoing through the rock. Leora's head turned sharply, her expression tightening. What was that? Ethan asked. She stepped closer, listening to the vibrating air. The support tower's recalibrating, she said. When a structure fails, the automated anchors try to stabilize the tension. It means the collapse is spreading. Ethan's pulse quickened. So the rest of the bridge could go? Yes, she said. And the access road with it. She started walking along the edge of the overhang, the glow in her skin brightening as she scanned the darkness with a focus that made Ethan follow without question. You need to move with me, she said. Before the ground shifts. Ethan quickened his pace beside her, his boots slipping slightly on the slick stone. Where are we going? To safer ground, she said. And then, somewhere you need to see. Ethan glanced at her, breath catching in his throat from the mix of cold and something he did not yet have words for. Why me? Leora's steps slowed just enough for her to look at him fully. Her voice softened, barely above the whisper of the mist. Because your path and mine crossed long before tonight. You just did not notice the footprints yet. She stepped forward again, and Ethan followed, unsure of where she was leading him, but certain for the first time in a long while that he did not want to walk away. Ethan followed Leora along the narrow ledge as the mist thinned, revealing more of the ravine's jagged walls. The ground beneath them felt firmer now, the rock rising gradually toward a plateau framed by crooked trees and brush bending gently under the weight of water. The storm had nearly passed, leaving only the low hum of wind weaving through the canyon. Leora walked ahead with a steady, almost weightless stride, her faint glow reflecting off the wet stone. Ethan kept his eyes on the path and on her, still trying to understand how someone who seemed carved out of light could exist in a place so harsh and unforgiving. You said there is somewhere I need to see, he said as he climbed the slope behind her. What is it? She did not answer immediately. Her gaze drifted toward the horizon where a few stars began to show through the thinning clouds. You will understand when we arrive, she replied. Understanding is quieter when it comes on its own. Ethan let out a breath. You talk like someone who has been thinking about this for a long time. She paused at that, her expression unreadable for a moment before she continued upward. Perhaps I have. The path leveled into a flat stretch of ground sheltered by a cluster of tall, vine-covered pillars that rose from the earth like the remains of old structures. Leora stepped between them with familiarity, brushing her hand along a smooth stone etched with faint, glowing lines. Ethan slowed, staring at the markings. Is this some kind of ancient ruin? Not ancient, she said. Just forgotten. By those who needed it, and by those who feared what it could do. Her fingers traced a curve in the stone that shimmered briefly under her touch. My people call this a waypost. Ethan stepped closer, feeling the temperature shift slightly around him, the air turning cooler and still. What does a waypost do? It listens, she said. To movement, to choices, to the echoes left behind when someone walks a path they are not sure they should be on. Ethan blinked. You make it sound alive. Leora looked at him, her eyes reflecting the pale glow of the stone. Perhaps not alive the way you understand life, but alive enough to know when someone passes with a heavy heart. Ethan hesitated. His voice was quiet when he finally spoke. Are you saying this thing watched me too? It sensed you, she corrected gently. The same way it sensed me. That is why it guided me to the bridge tonight. Ethan felt a slow chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Guided you? Yes, she said. Wayposts shift the odds. They nudge footsteps. They tilt choices. They can turn a wrong step into a right one, or delay a fall long enough for a hand to reach through the dark. Her eyes held his with a calm certainty. You were never alone out there. Ethan took that in, his mind struggling to wrap around the idea. So this place, this waypost, made our paths cross. Leora stepped past him, walking deeper between the stone pillars until they formed a loose circle around her. It made the possibility easier to see. Ethan followed slowly, the stone cool under his fingertips. The air inside the ring felt different, like a held breath. Leora knelt near the center, her glow casting soft shadows on the ground. "Look," she said. Ethan stepped beside her and froze. The earth beneath the vines held faint impressions in the dirt, softened by rain, but still visible. Footprints. His footprints. The same tread, the same pattern, the same uneven wear on the right heel. Dozens of them, overlapping, stretching toward the center of the circle, and then drifting outward again. Ethan's mouth went dry. "I have never been here," he whispered. "Not in daylight," Leora said softly. "But minds wander where feet are afraid to go." He stared at the prints, the familiar shape of them, the impossible reality of them. "This is not real," he said, voice unsteady. "I do not sleepwalk. I do not wander around cliffs in the middle of the night." Leora stood, her presence calm and steady beside him. "Not with your body," she said. "But paths are not always walked with feet." Ethan felt the mist settle on his skin, cool and grounding. His own footprints lay before him like echoes he never knew he left. Leora's voice softened. "Now you see why I brought you here." Ethan swallowed, unable to tear his eyes away. "Why would I come here? Why would I leave prints like this?" She stepped closer, her glow warming the shadows between them. "Because you were searching," she said. "And because somewhere in your searching, you were already walking toward me." Ethan felt something shift in his chest, a quiet tightening he could not name. He stood in the circle of stone, surrounded by his own silent echoes, and for the first time realized he had been following a path he had never noticed until now. Ethan stood in the ring of stone pillars, staring at the softened impressions in the earth, each footprint an echo of steps he could not remember taking. Mist gathered in the low spaces between the vines, curling around his boots like the remnants of an old dream. He raised a trembling hand and pressed it to the back of his neck, trying to ground himself. "This does not make any sense," he said quietly. "I do not walk in my sleep. I do not wander at night. I would remember coming here." Leora watched him with calm, steady eyes, her glow softened by the cool air. "Some journeys begin long before memory notices them," she said. "You came here in moments your mind filed away as rest, or drifting thought, or simple exhaustion. But your steps were real." Ethan shook his head slowly. "But why here? Why this place?" Leora stepped closer to the nearest pillar, her fingertips tracing the glowing lines again. "Because wayposts call to anyone who carries a weight they do not know how to set down," she said. "You were drawn here because something in you was asking for direction." Ethan let out a breath that fogged faintly in the cooling air. "I did not ask for anything. Your heart did," she replied gently. "Humans are not always aware of what they reach for in the dark." Her words settled over him like the mist, quiet but impossible to ignore. Ethan took a slow step toward the center of the circle. The ground dipped slightly under his weight, the soil soft from the rain. "So the footprints, they are a record of me searching?" Leora nodded. "Searching for answers. Searching for rest. Searching for something you did not have a name for yet." He knelt, brushing a fingertip over the nearest print. The shape was unmistakably his. The depth, the heel strike, the familiar worn tread. His breath caught again. "How long have these been here?" "Some are fresh," Leora said. "From the past week. Others are older. Weeks. Months." Ethan's heart thudded softly. "Months? I have been walking out here for months without knowing it." "Walking is only one kind of moving," she said. "You came here half awake, half thinking, half drifting. The waypost senses intention, not awareness. It listens beneath every step." Ethan stood slowly, running a hand through his wet hair. "So I came here because something inside me was lost." "Not lost," Leora corrected. "Trying to find its way." Her voice softened. "You came because you needed someone to notice." Ethan felt a small, unsteady breath leave him. "And you noticed." Leora's gaze held his, a calm steadiness that eased something inside him he did not know had tightened. "I noticed because the waypost answered," she said. "When it shows footsteps crossing the same place again and again, it means the traveler is trying to speak without words." She stepped toward him, the glow from her skin casting faint light across the prints. "And when I saw your path circle back here night after night, I knew you were calling out. Not loudly, Not clearly, but calling. Ethan felt something warm and fragile rise in his chest, like the beginning of clarity. Calling for what? Leora studied him, her silver eyes gentle but searching. Connection, she said softly. A reason to care if the ground below you gives way. Someone to know your name before the river does. Ethan's throat tightened, the truth in her words hitting deeper than he cared to admit. The storm clouds thinned further above them, revealing a sliver of moonlight that spilled across the pillars. Leora stepped closer, close enough that he could see the faint shimmer moving under her skin like quiet currents. You do not have to pretend you are fine, she said. Not here. Not with me. Ethan looked at the circle of his own footprints, dozens of silent echoes leading toward the same place. Leading toward her. I think, he said softly. This place knew me better than I knew myself. Leora's expression softened into something warmer, quieter. Wayposts only reveal what is already there. She said, you were the one walking toward the truth. Ethan drew in a slow breath, the air crisp and cool in his lungs. Then tell me, he said, meeting her eyes. What truth was I walking toward? Leora stepped into the center of the circle with him, her voice barely above a whisper. That you were never meant to walk alone. Ethan felt the weight of Leora's words settle into him like a quiet anchor, steadying something that had wavered for far too long. The mist curled around their ankles, drifting through the circle of stone pillars with a softness that made the air feel almost sacred. For a moment neither of them moved. The only sounds were the distant rush of the swollen river and the faint hum of energy within the waypost stones. Leora shifted first, her gaze drifting toward the horizon where the storm clouds finally began to tear apart, revealing patches of deep indigo sky. Dawn will reach the ravine soon, she said. We cannot stay here for long. Ethan blinked. Why not? It feels safe. Safe for you, she replied gently. But not for me. Ethan frowned. I do not understand. Leora stepped closer to one of the pillars, brushing her fingertips over the glowing patterns. My people guard the wayposts, she said. We do not allow outsiders to use them. And if they discover that I brought you here. She let the words trail off, not with fear, but with the resignation of someone who already knew the consequences. Ethan felt a tightness form in his chest. You said you guided me here because I needed it, he said. Because I was searching. Yes, she said softly. And I do not regret it. He stepped beside her, watching the glow beneath her skin pulse gently with each breath she took. Then why hide this? Why hide yourself? Leora looked at him, the faint silver light in her eyes carrying a depth that made his breath hitch. Because helping you is one thing, she said. But allowing you to see the path beneath your feet is another. My people do not believe humans should share our truths. They fear what your kind will do with knowledge that shapes choices. Ethan let out a soft exhale. You think I would misuse this place? She shook her head. Not you, but the ones who sent you. Across that failing bridge night after night might. Ethan looked down at the dirt where his footprints overlapped again and again. I did not choose that life because I wanted to, he said. I chose it because I ran out of other choices. Leora's voice lowered. Exactly. And when humans are placed in corners, they push outward. Hard. My people fear that one desperate human with waypost knowledge could shift more than his own path. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. So I am not supposed to be here. No, she replied. But you are. The simplicity of her tone stirred something warm in his chest. She stepped past him, moving toward a narrow path between the pillars. Come, she said. There is still something I must show you before dawn. Ethan followed, the stones humming faintly as he left the circle. The climb out of the waypost hollow was gradual, winding upward until the view opened to the wide ravine below. The broken bridge lay in the distance, its remaining cables hanging like dark threads against the river's reflection. Leora stopped near a fallen tree trunk, its bark stripped smooth by years of wind. Look down, she said. Ethan looked and froze. More footprints. His, leading up the slope toward the waypost, then back down again, crisscrossing, overlapping, fading in and out where rain had washed the soil. Not all of these are from tonight, Leora said. Some are from the last time you sleepwalked here. Ethan's heart quickened. I do not sleepwalk. I would know. Your body did not walk, she said. Your mind did. Wayposts speak to instinct, not memory. Ethan crouched, running his fingers along the fading impressions. The prints were his, unmistakably. So every time I felt the urge to stop the truck, every time I slowed at the midpoint. You were remembering without remembering, Leora said. Your steps here were calling you back. Ethan looked up at her, the cool morning wind brushing against his face. Calling me back to what? Leora held his gaze with quiet certainty, her voice gentle but unwavering. To the moment your life begins to change direction. Ethan swallowed. And you are that moment? She stepped closer, the glow of her skin softening as the first pale hints of dawn touched the ravine. No, Ethan, she said. You are. I am only the one who walked beside you long. Enough for you to see it. Something warm and unfamiliar rose in Ethan's chest, trembling but steady. He did not speak. He did not have to. The path that had led him here stretched behind him in footprints he had never remembered leaving. But the path ahead, he realized, was one he would walk awake. The first edge of dawn brushed the ravine with a pale, silver light, catching on the wet stones and the faint glow beneath Leora's skin. Ethan stood beside her on the narrow rise, the cool morning air lifting the last traces of storm mist from the ground. He felt clearer than he had in months, as though the night had rinsed something heavy out of his chest. Leora, however, had gone still in a way he had not seen before. Her posture was quiet, controlled, but there was a tension in the way she watched the horizon, as if listening for something only she could hear. Ethan stepped closer. What is it? She did not answer immediately. A soft ripple of light shifted under her skin, then dimmed. We have stayed too long, she said. My people will search for the energy spike from the collapsing bridge. They will follow the disturbance. Ethan frowned. The disturbance? You saved me. That should not be something you need to hide. Leora's silver eyes met his with a calm that felt like a veil pulled over worry. It is not the saving that concerns them. It is everything else. She gestured gently toward the waypost behind them. A human standing in a protected circle. Echoes of footsteps that should not exist. A pattern that crossed into forbidden ground. Ethan felt the warm clarity inside him tighten again. What happens if they find us here? They will not harm you, she said quickly. My people are cautious, not cruel. But they will erase every trace of what you saw. And they will take me away from this place. Ethan's breath hitched. Take you away? Far from here, she said softly. Where I cannot reach the waypost. Where I cannot cross paths with a human who was never meant to be part of this world. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of wet earth and rushing river. Ethan felt a heaviness settle at the base of his throat. But you chose to help me, he said. You chose to bring me here. Yes, she whispered. And that is why I must leave before they arrive. If they find me with you, they will believe I have crossed a boundary I cannot uncross. Ethan stepped forward instinctively, a surge of something firm and undeniable rising in him. You do not have to go. We can just walk away. We can leave the waypost, get off this ridge, find a road. Nobody has to know. Leora looked at him with a gentleness that made the air between them feel warm despite the cold morning. It is not that simple. They will sense the imprint I left on the bridge when I pulled you free. They will follow the pattern of my energy signature here. They will know. Then I will go with you. Ethan said, the words leaving him before he could think them through. Leora's expression softened in a way that made his chest ache. You cannot, she said. My world does not welcome humans. Not like this. Not without intention and approval and careful preparation. Ethan swallowed. Then what am I supposed to do? Just let you vanish after you pulled me out of the river, after you showed me all this? Her glow dimmed slightly, as if the dawn were pulling her towards something she did not want. Ethan Ward, she said quietly, I did not guide you to me so that you could lose yourself again. Your path is changing, but it is your path. He stepped closer, close enough to feel the cool warmth radiating from her skin. What about your path? Am I just supposed to pretend none of this happened? Her voice softened to a hush. You are the reason it happened. But that does not mean you are meant to follow me where I am going. A distant shimmer of light flickered across the far ridge, soft, barely visible, but Leora's posture stiffened. Ethan saw it too. Something approaching. Something deliberate. Leora turned back to him, her eyes bright in the rising sun. They are coming. Ethan felt his heartbeat stutter. Then stay with me, he said. Just one moment more. Leora stepped close enough that the glow beneath her skin lit the space between them in a soft blue halo. "1 moment," she whispered, "is all I can give." And as the first light of dawn settled over the ravine, Ethan felt the beginning of a goodbye forming in the quiet around them. The pale shimmer on the far ridge grew brighter, stretching into a thin, wavering line of light that pulsed with a rhythm Ethan had never seen before. It was subtle, almost gentle, yet the moment it appeared, Leora's entire posture shifted. Her glow dimmed as if she were trying to hide it, and her breath steadied into a controlled, deliberate calm. Ethan watched the ridge, then her, feeling the quiet urgency tightening around them. "That is them," she said softly. "The searchers. They follow energy trails. Mine is too fresh to disguise." Ethan's pulse thudded against his ribs. "How much time do we have?" Leora tilted her head, listening to the faint hum carried by the wind. "Minutes. Perhaps less. They are fast when they fear a boundary has been crossed." Ethan stepped toward her. "Then we should move. Come on. We can get down the ridge, cut through the valley." Leora placed a hand on his arm, stopping him with a touch that was firm but gentle. "Running makes it worse," she said. "It tells them I have something to hide. And they will search every corner of this ravine until they are certain you learn nothing." Ethan swallowed. "I do not want them to take you." Her expression softened, but the sadness beneath it remained steady. "They will not take me," she said. "They will escort me away. There is a difference." "It sounds the same to me," he muttered. Leora took a slow breath, her silver eyes lifting to meet his. "Then let me tell you one last truth before they arrive," she said. "It is the part you deserve to understand." Ethan felt the cool morning air press against his skin as if the world were waiting. "Tell me," he said. Leora stepped closer until her glow cast a faint halo across his jacket. "You asked why I knew your name," she said. "Why I recognized your steps. Why I felt the need to pull you from the river before the bridge gave way." Ethan nodded. "Yes. It was not only the waypost," she said. "It was not only the patterns. It was you." He blinked. "Me? Your presence," she said. "Your mind, your rhythm. Humans walk loud in the world," Ethan warned, "even when they are quiet in their hearts. Your steps brushed the edge of my awareness long before you ever touched the waypost ground." Ethan felt a warmth rise in his chest, something fragile yet undeniable. "So this was not just an accident," he said. "None of it." Leora looked at him with a softness that felt like dawn warming the edge of night. "The river did not pull you. The storm did not push you. You walked towards something you were meant to see. And I walked towards someone I was meant to meet." Ethan felt breath catch in his throat. "Why me?" She did not hesitate. "Because you are the first human whose steps echoed with intention, not fear. You were searching with your whole being, even when you did not know it. And that calls to us more strongly than any beacon or signal." Ethan felt the truth of it settle inside him, warm and steady. The shimmering line of light on the ridge grew brighter still, spreading into a faint arc. Leora looked toward it, then back at him, a quiet finality in her gaze. "They will expect me to deny everything," she said. "To say the waypost misread the patterns. To say you wandered alone." "But that is not the truth," Ethan whispered. "No," she said. "It is not." She reached out, her hand hovering near his, close enough that he could feel the faint warmth of her glow, close enough that the world felt suspended between one breath and the next. "But the truth is not always the safe path," she said. The shimmering arc of light on the ridge pulsed brighter, and the air around them shifted with the faint hum of approaching presence. Leora's voice softened to a thin, fragile whisper. "Ethan Ward," she said, "if this is the last moment we stand together, know this." She held his gaze with anchoring certainty. "You did not walk toward me by mistake. You walked toward the part of yourself that still believes in connection. I only met you there." The light on the ridge brightened into a second sun, spreading across the ravine in slow, deliberate waves as the searchers closed in on their location. Leora's glow faded almost completely, her outline becoming a quiet silhouette in the rising dawn. "They are here," she said. Ethan felt the moment tightening around them like held breath. "Leora," but she only stepped closer, her voice barely audible above the hum of approaching light. "Do not be afraid of the path, Ethan. It is already changing." And before he could speak again, the ridge lit up in a wash of pale gold, signaling the arrival of her people. The ridge glowed brighter as the searchers approached, the light spreading in slow, deliberate waves that made the air hum softly around Ethan's shoulders. He stood with Leora in the thinning mist, the early morning sun just beginning to warm the edges of the ravine. The silver glow beneath her skin had faded almost completely, and without it, she looked quieter, more fragile, as if the world were preparing to pull her beyond his reach. A gentle breeze lifted her hair as she watched the arc of light crest the ridge. "They will arrive here in seconds," she said. "Once they see me with you, they will read the entire sequence of events." "Then let them read it," Ethan said. His voice was steady, even though his heart beat fast enough to feel like a pulse in his throat. "Let them know what happened." She turned to him, expression soft. "Ethan, they will not punish you, but they will remove every trace of this night from your path. They will close the waypost. They will erase the echoes. You will not be allowed to return, and you will not be allowed to follow." Ethan shook his head. "Do they think they can stop me from remembering?" "They do not need to erase memory," she said. "Only possibility." The words pressed against him like a quiet weight. Possibility was exactly what she had given him. A way forward. A reason to look at the world and imagine something other than monotony. The shimmer on the ridge widened into 3 distinct beams of light, drifting toward them like soft lanterns suspended in the air. The searchers were almost upon them. Leora stepped closer in the last breath of quiet they had left. "Ethan Ward," she said, "if they ask, tell them you were lost in the storm. Tell them you fell. Tell them you saw nothing beyond the rocks and the river." He stared at her, stunned. "You want me to lie?" "I want you to remain free," she said. "If you speak the truth, they will bind your path to mine, and that is something neither of us can afford." Ethan felt the breath leave him in a quiet rush. "But you said our paths crossed for a reason." "They did," she said, her voice softening. "And that reason was to change yours." She brushed her fingertips near his wrist, close enough that he felt the faint warmth where her skin glowed. "Not to chain it." The lights descended upon the ridge, resolving into 3 tall figures draped in flowing fabric that shimmered like water. Their glow was steady and controlled, nothing like the fragile flicker beneath Leora's skin. They stopped several yards away, hands lowered in calm neutrality. Ethan could not read their faces, but he felt their attention like a quiet pressure in the air. One of them spoke, the voice musical and even. "Leora of the riverward line." The figure said, "You stand outside your boundary. Explain your presence here, and the presence of the human beside you." Leora did not look away from Ethan as she answered. "The human was caught in the bridge collapse. I intervened." "Intervention is permitted," the searcher said. "But the waypost circle was disturbed. The patterns show footprints not belonging to our kind." Ethan felt his pulse spike. Leora stepped forward, keeping herself between him and the searchers. "The waypost responded to my energy signature," she said calmly. "It echoed my steps. The human saw nothing. He remembers nothing." He was frightened and in shock. The searchers were silent for a long moment, the hum of their energy filling the dawn air. Ethan felt his throat tighten. She was protecting him, even now, even with her own fate hanging in the balance. The tallest searcher spoke again. "This human must leave the ravine. He is not to return to this territory." Leora nodded slowly. "He will not return." Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but Leora gently pressed her hand against his forearm, a silent plea. "It is all right," she whispered. Her voice trembled almost imperceptibly. "This is how it must be." The searchers turned, their shimmering forms drifting back toward the ridge in graceful, fluid movement. When the hum had faded, Ethan and Leora were alone again, standing in the thin light of dawn. Leora stepped back from him, her glow faint but steady. "This is where your path continues," she said softly, "and where mine must turn." Ethan felt words gather in his chest, but none were strong enough to rise. She took one last step toward him, her eyes reflecting the early morning light like 2 small mirrors of silver water. "Do not forget what you learned when you walked in circles," she said. "You are allowed to choose a direction now." The wind brushed between them, cool and gentle. Leora held his gaze for one final heartbeat, then turned toward the ridge, following the fading shimmer of her people. Ethan watched her go, watched the light gather around her silhouette until she disappeared into the dawn. The ravine fell silent. The mist thinned. The world felt wider. And when Ethan finally looked down, he saw one last footprint beside his. a small one, glowing faintly blue before fading into the morning air.